Good day, everybody, and welcome to the Can Church Be Healthy podcast, where a pastor and a therapist are getting curious about this experience that we call the church and the fruit that it is currently producing here in the western part of the world. My name is John Shirley.
I am Tom Page.
And we are really glad to be with you guys today. I should say I'm the pastor in this situation, and you
There's no shoulds, but you can.
Yeah. You would be the therapist in this situation.
Yes.
Today, we are talking about what will become, what we call our operating system here in our context, in our church, the Gathering Network. Most churches that I visit or know about, it's been this really curious thing that I've seen over the last decade or the last 15 years. There's been this little 3-part, what would it be?
It's like a mission, kind of.
Like a mission statement. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. For us, it would be up, in, and out, right? Up, in, and out. And we got that from 3D Ministries years ago. They shaped us, formed us through all their processes and their learning communities years ago. But mostly what I see are churches have a mission statement that is 3-dimensional in nature. It's to love God, love each other, love the world, up, in, out, pray, make disciples, live on mission, something like that. A lot of times you walk into the church lobby and it's just painted up on the walls, or it's in their bulletins or on their website or whatever.
On t-shirts,
wherever it is, some version of love God, love each other, and love the world. And it's interesting. One of the things that I told our story a little bit in the previous episode, that we were a college ministry, sort of an attraction. We were coming out of a season of this attractional movement where we had the band on lock, and it was just a worship jam every week, and the teaching was really great, and there were hundreds of people around. And then we became a church. Our church, our mega church here in town, the church that we went to, decided to plant us as a church plant, and then we moved into this missional community ideology, or this missional community framework in terms of how we were organizing ourselves as a church. So we went from a big room into homes.
Yep.
And
which was a learning curve.
It was a huge learning curve. Yes, absolutely it was. And up, in, and out became a very practical way for us to describe who we were trying to be and what we were trying to do. You guys, we want to live an up, in, and out life. We want to be people of prayer, people that make disciples, people who live on mission. And we call that a Jesus-shaped life. We see that Jesus lived a life of love in 3 different directions. And we got that phrase, a Jesus-shaped life, from a dear friend, Bob Ronglian. He wrote a great book about it, by the way. Guys, if you want to kind of dive in and learn a little more.
I'm sure you can find it on Amazon.
A Jesus-shaped life. Bob, shout out to you, my man. But what we began to experience after about a decade, what happens with vision? When you're moving from one thing to another, there's always a guy like me that shows up with a lot of vision, and they're like, guys, we're going to do this. And they paint a very utopian vision, right?
This is going to be the greatest ever.
It's going to change the world, guys. That's what we're doing. We are going to change the world with up, in, and out, which I still believe, that we can.
I believe it too. We're just maturing into what that looks like.
That's right. So we launched into some leadership development where we were teaching people how to spend time with God, because that's essential, how to make disciples, because that's the work, and how to live on mission, because that's the call. And, there's a lot of buy-in at the beginning. You remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So we went through a couple of different iterations of these groups, these small micro groups, where we decided we are going to get together in triads, maybe 3s or 4s, and we are so dedicated to this that we are going to be terrible at discipleship until we are good at it publicly. And man, true to form, that happened. But we learned over a period of years that there was a lot of buy-in at first. People were really excited to begin to live into this idea of a Jesus-shaped life. But after about 10 years, we started to see the plateauing, and then beyond the plateauing, that sort of that experience where, as a communicator, I'm standing in front of everybody and I'm like, guys, discipleship, right? And everybody's like, bobbing their head, yes. And like, but do you have disciples? Are you making disciples? And they're like, yeah, not anymore, man.
It's like, bro, we're so tired.
Yeah, we're so tired.
This has been such a painful road. There's joy, but I think that we didn't realize how.
Yeah, what was that? Talk. Like, what do you think was going on there?
Well, I was bought in too, and I still am bought in a way. But we were young and somewhat naive, and when you do real life discipleship, you bump up against real life. And so whatever's going in us, our defaults that come from our own stories, things that are kind of under the hood that we don't know, and then that rubs against other people. And so then we deal with real things like conflict, like disappointment, lack of follow through, lack of character, big dreams and expectations, and then things kind of sometimes just piddle out. And so then to have a sense of grit or resilience that is just rooted in love and not like hustle.
Yeah.
We just didn't have that skill set or that maturity. And so I think unintentionally what happened is a lot of people got worn out, burnt out even, to the point where they're like, I don't know that mentally or physically I have the capacity to keep investing in this thing called discipleship the way that we had been doing it. And so intellectually, I think in people's heads, they're like, do you believe in healthy relationship? And they're like, helping people grow in a Christ likeness. And I'm like, well, yeah, of course. It's like, do you want to put your effort into that? And like, no, I don't, not anymore.
Not if it means what I just went through.
Yeah. And so I think then where from that point till now, we've kind of been at how do we learn to care for our own hearts, our minds, and our relational well-being so that as we continue to move into this thing we're calling discipleship, helping people grow into Christ-likeness, that we have more skills to be whole and healthy people. And because there's just a whole lot under the surface of our life that we realized wasn't really accounted for in the simple up, in, and out. A good frame,
right?
But there's just a lot more.
More to the story.
Yeah.
More to what became for us the operating system.
Yeah, right? And which you ended up calling the iceberg.
The iceberg, yeah. And we're going to get to that here in just a second, But I remember first of all, the experience. What I began to discern and see was happening in the lives of these disciples that I had made, and just the dear friends that we were walking with was, this question, do you value prayer? And everybody's like, yes, of course. Do you practice prayer? Not really. Do you pray? No, not really. I don't prioritize it in my life. I value it, but I don't prioritize it, Do you value disciple making? Yes, of course. The whole thing is dependent on us making disciples. That's going to be our longevity, in terms of what it means for us to be the church. Are you currently making disciples? No, I'm not. Yeah. Okay, well then what about mission? Do you believe in the mission of Jesus? Yes, it's beautiful. I read the Gospels, and what Jesus did with his life on mission was absolutely stunning. Okay, are you doing that currently in your life? Like, not so much anymore. Why? Because it didn't go the way that you told me it would go, John. And isn't it true? We use this metaphor of a puzzle box for years. That you only, I guess it depends on how much you love puzzles. I would never attempt a puzzle. I'm not a puzzle person. My wife, Alyssa, she's a puzzle person. a puzzle is a lot of work, but you're not going to do the work unless you care about the picture on the box.
Mhm.
So early on, we were like, hey, this picture that we're about to enter into, this puzzle of figuring out how to do prayer, discipleship, and mission together, look at this picture. It's awesome. It's going to be worth investing all this time in.
Hmm.
But the more that people started to do the work, they started to realize, oh my gosh, dude, there's puzzle pieces we can't seem to find. We
Yeah.
can't seem to find. And you told me a story that seemed to name what I felt like we were experiencing. And it's a Terry Real story. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
About his first years of being a therapist. Can you retell that story?
There's a lot of Terry Real stories. Which one is it in
Okay,
particular?
well, I'm thinking about the one where you said, you told me that he had been, this was decades ago when he was beginning his practice. These couples would come into his office and they would be in
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
crisis.
Yes.
They couldn't communicate to one another. And so they would say, Terry, we're struggling with communication. Can you teach us communication skills? And he was like, yeah, here's some communication skills. Then they would go away. That was all right and good until they got into their next argument, where they would then weaponize the communication skills against one another.
Or just not use them at all. Just dump them in the trash.
Yeah, just dump them in the trash or weaponize them against one another. And that's when he learned, oh, I need to go into story before skills.
Yeah. Yeah, he's fond of saying that in his way of doing therapy, which is called RLT, so relational life therapy, that we teach you to work with the parts of you
Mm-hmm.
that don't want to use the skills.
Mm.
And so, like, what happens is that for all of us, we come from a story, and all kids are just learning to do one of two things. Um, if you're not having a consistent and safely attuned relationship with your caregiver, you learn modeling and or adaptation. So modeling is if dad was angry and yelled in traffic, and then all of a sudden you're becoming one who expresses your anger and there's no boundaries there. That you've learned it. You're modeling that thing. You're becoming your father. And then we carry that into our marriages. And then adaptation is like the opposite of that. So say dad's angry and big and loud, and then to avoid dad's anger, maybe you placate or you get small or you avoid confrontation as a way to survive that thing that's really tough. And what he's saying is that like that reality exists in what's called our autonomic nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is largely implicit memory. So implicit versus explicit memory. Implicit is bodily memory. It is not like known and aware and conscious. That's explicit memory. It's like later Blakely will go, "Hey, what'd you do today?" I was like, "Oh, I did the podcast thing with John." That's explicit memory.
Mm-hmm.
But like when I, go outside and if I heard someone like shout or do something, be like, "Hey," and then my body like would tense up. Like that's an implicit kind of memory.
Response.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so what Terry is saying is that our default responses in stress and relationships tend to come from this place under the surface. And if we don't know how to tap into story in our own being, then what will win the day in our relationships are our default survival styles. And there's no shame in it because those survival styles helped us survive. And for some people,
Mm-hmm.
really hard, unimaginable kind of things that their adaptive childlike parts are brilliant. It's just he is fond of the saying that goes, "What was adaptive then becomes maladaptive now."
Mm-hmm. Right.
And so when we look at these things and these tendencies, we do it with a lot of compassion and kindness and
Mm-hmm.
going, "Oh, hey, well, of course you've learned how to get angry, or of course you learned how to silence your own voice and be a caretaker for other people." Because what would have happened had that not been the case?
Mm-hmm.
And usually you're ignored or you're left without or you're attacked or there's just things that are very hard that would have happened had you not adapted. So for us in our life together in the church, this is what we're realizing is that we need to go beyond like a simple up in and out formula. We need to be able to help people get into their stories and into their bodies because those defaults will express through the up in and out. And
Yes.
can you remember what labels you put on those? You're like, if you're coming from a funky, like up becomes this, in becomes that, out becomes that. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, it's like okay, prayer, what we began to experience was a new theology of like healing prayer.
Hmm.
Okay? That was early on. And that was related to the missional life. Like go pray for people to be healed, you know?
Yeah.
And we can see in the Bible that God still heals. Well, once people began to go out and pray for healing, and then they didn't see people healed, we did see some people get healed, but we didn't see all people get healed. That kind of stuff began to bump into people's theology, uh, their experience relationally with God, what it feels like to be disappointed, right?
Hmm.
Or they prayed for another thing to happen and it didn't come to pass. Or maybe they just began to experience a lot of anxiety in their relationship with God based on their performance in prayer or whatever.
Mm.
And so it wasn't just as simple to just say, go pray. What we learned later on was, oh, there's a story underneath your relationship with God as a father that is
Yeah.
informing the experience of prayer in your life.
Yeah.
And the same thing is true of discipleship, and the same thing is true of mission. And so or evangelism. And so the reason why we would say, hey, it's well and good to have love God, love each other, love the world painted on the lobby of the church. But
Hmm.
if we don't come to understand that there is a lot of implicit life being lived into those three things, then the puzzle will only be a picture. It will only be a romantic vision, and people will never, ever, ever get there, right?
Yeah.
Prayer will be an anxious experience. Discipleship could actually become manipulative, where people are like, I need you, my disciple, to move from point A to point B quicker than you are currently,
Hmm.
because I really need that to show up on my board in heaven, you know?
Yeah. And can
Or,
we even like slow that down and just acknowledge for our listeners? Like, I think one of the main pain points that people experience in the church is the manipulation. We're coming with like a, on one hand, like, here's this thing I'm inviting you to, but it feels like, what's the if I don't behind it?
yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, what's the consequence then? And so it feels like there's some control and power being played out in that system, which is supposed to be a safe and relational and family kind of system.
Hmm.
But then now we get into this like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that. So like, man, the manipulation, whether it's intended or not, is
Yeah.
a huge deal.
And many times it's not
Right.
intended. Many times, most of the time, what's happening in that scenario is that you have a leader that is not in touch with their own story.
Yeah.
And actually, when we're really asking about the fruit of the church and what it is producing, what we see is a entire leadership structure that is unaware of what they are doing to people.
Hmm.
We see a whole fraternity of mostly men leading the church who are not only self-aware, they're they're maybe not even awake to the fact that the life that they've lived unto this moment is going public in their leadership in felt ways.
Yeah.
So all of us have had the experience of being led by somebody that has tremendous biblical knowledge, but love has not been metabolized into
Hmm.
their way of life or leading. And it's I guess the church is just going to have to come to realize that it doesn't matter what we say nearly as much as what is felt
Yeah.
by the people that are experiencing us, because what is felt is the new memory. So it doesn't matter what we say, it's how people experience us. It's how they feel when they leave our presence. That is the new word.
Hmm.
That is the new word. Hey everybody, I want to take just a second very quickly to let you know about a couple of things that Tom is doing. First of all, every Monday, Tom sends out an email that he calls Transformation Tips to everybody that has signed up for this email. And I've got to tell you, it is full of wisdom and practical advice on how to experience greater transformation in your life. And, like me, you guys are experiencing Tom's wisdom week after week here on this podcast. And so I would just suggest that you go to pagecounseling.com/tips, pagecounseling.com/tips to get on that email list. And then secondly, if you would like to work with Tom as a client and you are in the Kansas City metro area, go to pagecounseling.com and simply let Tom know that you would like to work with him and get in that pipeline with him. If you'd like to work with Tom virtually, you can do so if you live in the state of Kansas. Also, you can go to pagecounseling.com to learn more about how to work with Tom virtually. But you guys, that's what I have for you. And I just suggest that you guys get in there and get as much of Tom's wisdom as you possibly can. What a gift he is to us. So I think one of the things that's just in my own leadership, one of the things that is imperative to me is that I have to take responsibility to get in touch with my, what we would call under the waterline implicit life. It's what we would call the iceberg, right? And I know Pete Scazzero does a lot of this in emotionally healthy spirituality too. But if you can imagine that little up in and out triangle as a mountain peak or the peak of the iceberg, what we know is that under the waterline, an iceberg, 90% of an iceberg is actually what is under the waterline. And so what I am aware of now as a leader is that my young self is going public quite a bit in my leadership. And
meaning that like your young defaults are expressing in ways that are kind of automatic and you're not always aware of it.
Yeah, I mean, like,
I think you're growing quite a bit.
Oh, well, thanks, man. Thanks.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. I also, and I think that I have also been hard at work, in this part of my life and world. And it is the skills that we are going to be talking about in this podcast that have helped me.
Yeah, same.
And we are using these skills in our leadership pipeline to raise up what we would call safe, skilled, and spirit-filled house church leaders, because it's not just that we have leaders to lead, right? And again, in our early iteration, it was like, hey, you're willing. Hey, you, who wants to lead?
You'd be great at this.
Hey, the missional movement is saying we should rapidly multiply things. So you got a heartbeat and you have faith in the book of Acts, you'll do great. So go get them, And I think that may be true and even different in other parts of the world. But here in America, people have church stories. They have church in the iceberg with other stuff in the iceberg. And
also other cultures, like there's different cultures, there's different systems, there's different things. And so like how that multiplication plays out is a totally different context.
Yes. Yeah, that's true. That's very true. We began to, especially when we started to really see this stuff, we were like, first of all, we got to overhaul our leadership culture, because what is imperative is that we begin to set forth leaders that are safe, skilled, and spirit-filled, right?
Yep.
And so, for instance, now look, well, this is kind of getting into some of this too, but
yeah, go ahead.
At Leader School, we always start Leader School. Every single session, every single class starts with me at a whiteboard drawing up 3 columns and saying, hey, the aim is for us here at Leader School to raise up safe, skilled, spirit-filled house church leaders. And so I said, here's a house church. And this could be true of anybody that's listening that's in like a cell group or a small group or
missional
whatever.
Community.
Yeah, whatever group, small group size we're talking about. I just pitch a little, imagine 15 adults in the room. There's some kids, infant, toddler, maybe, 12-year-old kid, different life stages there. You got one couple on the brink of divorce, a single mom who's just gone through it, and then some other just life stuff happening. All of them are in though. They want to grow and they want to
Yeah.
grow in Christ. There's a
Just
meal
small
happening.
community of people doing real life.
Yeah. And so, what then is a safe leader of those people? And the whole class will begin to say, oh man, they need to be empathetic. They need to be, they need to have some skills around confidentiality. They need to be people who can kind of regulate their emotions. And then they kind of create this beautiful list.
Yes.
Right. And then we'll move over to the skilled category. Okay, leading that group of people, what skills do they need? And they're like, oh man, they should probably be able to facilitate a conversation. They should probably be able to do some administration, maybe, communication skills. And then they fill that column up. And then we go to the spirit filled. Okay, well, if that leader is a spirit filled person, then what does that look like? By the time we're done, there's this incredible list, this incredible picture of what a leader could really be. And I back up and go, okay, how much of that is intuitive?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a needle scratches off the record. They're like, the room falls silent and they go, well, none of it. It's mostly skill based. And I go, that's right. It is mostly skill based. There are some graces here. There are some personality things here, but mostly this is skill based. So we have to send you into a pipeline, into a journey of becoming the kind of leader that we hope that you will be here. And a huge part of that journey is leading people to become aware of what is implicitly inside them, because what is in the iceberg of their life is what is coming through their leadership. So this is kind of going back to the question you asked me earlier. What does it talk about? What am I dealing with? My implicit stuff in my life is that I realize that when I'm leading people in an environment, and let's just say that somebody disagrees with me. Maybe I just made a comment and somebody put their hand up in the air and then they just disagreed with me, right? They challenged me publicly. Well, that's not ever a comfortable feeling, is it? And as soon as somebody kind of is like, hey, John, actually, and then they disagree with me publicly, maybe they argue with me publicly, maybe they're behaving badly, maybe they're not regulated. Well, if I don't know that there's a little boy in me that felt small when he was young, right? And I'm in an environment with someone, with other people, where I'm starting to feel small again.
Yeah.
If I'm not aware that that little part of me can wake up in my leadership, then I'm actually not a self-aware leader. So I need to have gone on a journey that helps me go, oh, I've got these parts.
Yeah.
And they wake up at certain points. And they're a lot easier for me to regulate when I at least know they're there. Or I can at least go back and apologize later on if that part of me did show up and was behaving badly.
Yeah, none of us relate to our younger parts or adaptive parts. There's lots of different language for that, but none of us relate to them perfectly all the time.
Right.
But even having the awareness and a skill set to do an effective repair with someone builds a lot of trust.
All the trust.
And so like, trust. And there's times where we've done that together. Yes. One of us going like, hey man, can I follow up about that conversation? How are you doing? I don't feel like I did real great. Are you cool with me? Like, how are you feeling? How'd it land with you? Yep. And like, man, like the humility and the gentleness, like I feel very safe with you, but we've had lots of years doing that kind of stuff. And when you have that in your friendships and you have that in your marriages, like you're not afraid to fail anymore.
Right.
There's a lot of freedom when you have the ability and the awareness to do effective relational repair with people. Man, it creates such a safety, because then you're like, okay, I can be imperfect.
Yeah.
Here, but it takes skill to get to that point.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, listen, I care about this conversation and I feel like it's important, particularly for all of the pastors out there who are asking why their up in and out, love God, love each other framework isn't bearing the fruit that they hoped it would.
Yeah.
And I think that we, or the other listener who maybe is just not a leader, but they're like, why is prayer so hard for me? Why do I value discipleship and not make disciples? Why do I value living a sacrificial life and still live a very protected, life?
Mm-hmm.
There's these bridges that are out between what we value theologically or ideologically and then the thing that we actually prioritize and make, build space and time in our calendar to practice.
Yes.
And what the space in between, in the space in between, is a lot of pain and a lot of tension.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually that tension and that pain that becomes the teacher to tell us. It actually becomes the way that we interact with God to heal our hearts.
Mm-hmm.
So rather than avoid those parts, we go, okay, this part is not here for me to pray away. It's not here for me to demonize. It's not here for me to condemn. It's here for me to say, I think you're showing up to teach me something new about myself.
Yes.
And I think Jesus wants to come in with you. He wants to walk the map of my internal life, my world, my iceberg. And Jesus wants to kind of go, hey, there's a bridge out over here. Can we talk about that bridge?
Mm-hmm.
Can we just talk about what happened to take that bridge out in your life? Because I love to be with you and attached to you in the place of prayer. I miss you. I'd love to be with you, but you're struggling there. So can we talk about it? It also opens up a whole world of discussion and possibility in the way that we can help other people along together as well. So I think that's why this is important to me. It's important to me that leaders grow in their own self-awareness and their own ability to be self-aware, but that also people in general, learn that there's a whole history of their life that is informing the present moment right now.
Yeah.
And what is both positive and negative about the present moment right now. So.
Yeah. Can I, before we wrap up, I don't know if it feels like we're in the cresting the hill wrap
Did
up.
you feel that?
I felt that.
Yeah.
It was
okay,
like, here we go. It's just like, when the roller coaster kind of comes to it's more gentle than that. There's not like the kickback at the end. I'm the kickback right now because I just botched it.
No, it's okay. I was coming around the corner.
Okay.
Matt, so
all right, cool.
Yeah, but no, you go where you want to go.
So just for the listeners, I wanted to give you an idea about how can you start to become aware of your inner world. And in I'm not sure if I got it from Internal Family Systems or Terry Real. I think it's from IFS and Dick Schwartz's work. But we talk about trailheads. And so a way to start to become aware that some part of your inner reality, an implicit memory, is starting to show up and drive your bus, so to speak. There's a couple things to pay attention to. So one is your emotions or your feelings. So anytime you notice an extreme emotional feeling or reaction, instead of hating it or condemning it, I encourage just like, okay, you start to go, okay, wow, like that thing is there. I feel that.
You're here now.
You're here now. There you are. Sadness, discomfort, embarrassment, pain, anger, love, joy, fear, all this. So your emotions are one. Images in your mind. So this could be thoughts or pictures, stories that play in your mind. So you have emotions, you have thoughts, you have sensations in your body. Sensations in your body could be like pressure, pain, discomfort. Could be calm. It could be an irritability, a sense of like I can't sit still. I got to keep moving. And another one could be like urges, where you feel a compulsion, which is still kind of like a body sensation. Like I just feel like I gotta do this thing. I gotta scratch this itch. I gotta get a piece of candy. I gotta hold my phone. And so these are all what we call trailheads, so that when we notice our holistic experience, we can start to go, oh, I'm sensing this thing in my body. I'm sensing this thing in my mind. I wonder what that is. How am I doing right now? And so for those of you listening, that's just give you that a little map as you continue on throughout your day today or the days to come. Just start being aware of the various trailheads of your inner world. So emotions, thoughts, body sensations, urges. And just if you can, start to have a curious disposition. And you might be surprised where those trailheads lead. And what they might have to teach you, just like you said.
Yeah. And I think that we are starting to go, this is essential in our spiritual formation.
Of course, yeah.
Like this is actually imperative in our spiritual formation. And, we've never even learned. There's a whole world of things that our discipleship that that we inherited, our ways of discipleship that we learned, the way that we were spiritually formed, this work called discipleship, it just omitted so much. And we're like, oh, there's a whole world that's actually really, really helpful.
Yeah.
That's helping us get much, much deeper into the place of the heart. So, hey, let's hold some space, man. Do you mind if I give it a go?
Dude,
this time?
Go for it. Yeah. The floor is yours.
Yeah. Oh, wow. Well, firstly, I just want to invite you again, as we say, if you are able to do just some sort of somatic gesture, like to put your hand over your heart, get your feet really firmly rooted on the floor, and to just allow yourself to just slow down. I don't know what this episode has generated or provoked in you. Don't know what feeling may be alive in you right now, but I would just ask you, could you be kind to that part of you that may feel energetic right now, or anxious, or awake in a new way? Maybe a part of you feels like it pricked on a hurt or a pain or a memory. You may be feeling grateful. You may be feeling excited. Whatever it is that you're experiencing right now internally, allow that to just be a very bodily experience for you. Put your hand on your heart, and maybe we could just say, Jesus, thank you for the trailhead. Thank you for that trailhead. I just want to invite you, just as a pastor, pastoral work here, I would say, could you just invite Jesus to come close to you in your thought, your imagination, and to maybe imagine him taking you by the hand and approaching that trailhead together, and just asking, Jesus, what do you have for me here? And as we wrap up this part of the episode right now, I just know that you are in good hands when you are in the hands of the Father. And so we leave you with him now, and whatever adventure awaits the two of you together today. But we do pray that that trailhead would lead to beautiful discovery for you in your life. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. You guys, thank you for joining us. We will be back with another episode. Thanks so much. You guys, thank you so much for dropping in today. If you have any questions or comments, you can reach out to us at gatheringnetwork.org/healthychurchpodcast. It always means so much if you will rate and review the podcast any place where you happen to stream. Credits for today's episode are podcast writers are myself, John Shirley, and Tom Page. Sound design and editing, John Shirley. Show intro music, Light Up the Night by Brasco. Advertisement_track, Well Enough Alone by Reveal. Holding Space _track, Threads by Acreage. And all of these have been licensed through Soundstripe. Once again, we thank you so much for giving us your time today. God bless you, and we'll see you soon.